Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, running through every possible worst case scenario, or feeling on edge when things are going too well? Anxiety has a way of keeping us on high alert. But my next guest believes that instead of letting anxiety control us, we can actually use it to our advantage, turning it into something productive, positive, and even creative. Licensed therapist Nicole Conrad is joining me to explain. So it's great to have you back, Nicole.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Let's first start with the why. Why do we feel anxious? Why do we get anxiety?
Well, our brain is so great at taking good care of us. It's this protective part of our brain that helps us be on high alert for danger or to be prepared for, unexpected things, which is really great. You think about being prepared and being motivated to take care of problems when they come up. But I think what your viewers are going to be thinking is, okay, well, that's great and all, but what about this anxiety that just is controlling me, that I'm worrying too much about things, that maybe it feels like the worry is disproportionate to the situation. So that's what I'm hoping we can help the viewers with today.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that. It's also interesting because I think so many of us do experience anxiety, and it can be in different ways, but there are some common ways we all kind of experience. What are some of those that we should be looking for?
Yeah, so I would break it down into two categories. We kind of have the physical and the mental. So physically, it might be things like your muscles tighten, you feel butterflies or sticks to your stomach, shortness of breath, things like even holding your breath sometimes. I catch myself doing that. The mental would be more of like the racing thoughts, what we call rumination, like you're just a hamster wheel, it just keeps going round and round and round.
Yeah.
The difficulty to control the worry. And another way is we catastrophize, right? We take something that's this big and we blow it up to be this big. So that's kind of the mental piece that you might experience.
I mean, we know it makes us miserable when we're experiencing it, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we just turn it off? Like people will say, I experience it, I've got family that does, and you kind of want to just be like, oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
Get over it. But you can't in that moment. Why is that?
Yes. Well, because here's the reality. Again, think about it. Our brain wants to protect us. It's doing its job. It's working really hard to keep us safe and prepared. And so really all things have a cost. All behaviors we do have a cost and a payoff. So you're talking about the cost, what it takes away from us. And it's like, ooh, I wish I could just stop. But really it has a payoff as well. And that's what people often overlook. Again, when we have that worry, it feels like, oh, I'm preparing for the worst case scenario. I'm anticipating, I'm thinking of every possible thing that could go wrong, so I'm ready to go. So when I'm dealing with clients in therapy and say, well, what if I told you to just stop worrying about this? That anxious part of the brain's like, but no, I need to be prepared, So oftentimes it feels like it's serving us, and that's the tricky part, is it really feels almost like the security blanket for us.
But there's part of it that's maybe good for us too?
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
Sure. Well, think about it. Again, we would be in big trouble if we didn't have any fear or anxiety or worry. But I like to think of things as having a functional range, which is what you're talking about. There's a good part, and then there's kind of the dysfunctional range, which is what we're talking about. When the worry feels like it has overrun our lives, it's out of control. So my tips today are to hopefully move it back into maybe a more healthy range of worry, so it's not consuming you, it's not too overwhelming.
Yeah.
And when we are still in, maybe we have a little bit of stress, like a job interview or whatever, we can still worry and prepare, but it's not so overwhelming that we are caught up in the rumination and can't move into a productive space.
Okay, so let's talk about these tips, because you're really saying we can turn this anxiety into creativity, and we can move into a place of inspiration and joy and curiosity. And so the first one is through imagery.
Yes.
Walk me through this. What do you mean?
Yeah, so I have a great analogy for you. Have you ever burned something in the house while you're cooking?
100% I have, yes.
Okay, so you have it under control, right? You're like, oh shoot, okay, the alarm's going off. I'm gonna open some windows. I'm gonna fan it. You are in control. You know everything's fine, right? So just because there's an alarm doesn't mean there's a fire. Correct? But that's what happens in our brains. The alarm bell's going off, ooh, danger, danger, or we're really worried about something happening, and we freak out assuming there's a fire. Okay, so we can use imagery as a way to kind of get out of our brains and maybe look at it from a different perspective. So I teach this to my clients all the time. There's an alarm going off, but is there a fire, or is it just smoke? Just a different way of viewing the situation, being able to maybe zoom out, take a step back, take a breather. But just because there's an alarm doesn't mean there's a fire.
I love that analogy. That's so helpful. Okay, so another one you've talked about is identifying the source of the anxiety. How does that help us?
Okay, so this is different than saying, okay, well, I'm worried about this job interview, or I'm worried about having this hard conversation with a friend. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying take it a step deeper. Okay, you're worried about this conversation with a friend because the friendship is important to you, or you're worried about this job because you want to provide for your family. So thinking about what is the real reason behind this worry, and then come up with a plan that's going to help you address that. So it might be communicating to this friend that the friendship's really important to you. How can I communicate things in a calm way? Okay, so you're not caught up in the worry, obsess about everything that could go wrong. It's, oh, there's a real reason here why this is so important to me and I'm stressing about this. What steps can I actually take that will help me be successful in achieving this goal?
Okay, I really like this next one too. You're talking about separating the anxiety from who you are. Explain that to me a little bit more.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the fear and worry is kind of that protective part of our brain, and sometimes it can feel like it's all of us rather than just a part of us. It can become all-consuming or feel like, think about the lovely movie Inside Out 2, the character anxiety, right? Okay, so oftentimes we over-identify with the worry and we start to believe the worry, okay? We fear the worst case scenario, we assume that's what's gonna happen, and we have a hard time removing ourselves from that. And so when you can say, you know what, this is just a part of me that's trying to help me do my best in life or prepare myself for things, and I'm gonna set that aside for a minute and think about, okay, what's really most important to me? Or is this how I want to respond? Am I coming from a place of calm, clarity, creativity, or am I coming from a place of fear? And recognizing I can set that fear aside and think about this in a more clear way.
Yeah, okay. And I know we've got more to talk about. We always never have enough time.
I know.
But we want to make sure that our viewers can find more. So where are they going to go to learn from you?
Well, you can find me at resilientlifeutah.com, and I'm teaching a motherhood course for on February 20th for new and expecting mothers, and I'd love to have your viewers join.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Nicole. Appreciate all your thoughts.